Alright guys, so I'm going to explain why we're doing this, but right now we are bleeding the supercharger. There's a lot of air pockets built up into the supercharger, and I'll kind of go over that. And I'll go over why my lines are all over the place, but I just wanted to show you. I've got this 7/16 inch hose. Actually, this is a 1/2 inch clear vinyl hose, and there's a bleeder valve back there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's for the supercharger. And when you hook up an ice tank or anything like that, you do need to bleed the supercharger, so that's what I'm doing right now. It's kind of like bleeding brake fluid, so you just want to get the air pockets out, get them moving around. So, and I've just got the hose just dripping under because I can't fit a bucket under there, so I've just got it. It's just water. It's coming out that hose and just going to the bottom of the shop, and then I'll just squeegee the rest out. So that's what I'm doing right now. All right, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's another day in the Van Voorst garage, and I'm sweating my balls off again because we still don't have insulation and no fan. Anyways, let's move on. So as you saw, I was bleeding the supercharger. The reason for that is last week I went out and ran the car, and my mile an hour was still not there, still at 134, 135, and usually I'm mile an hour about 139, 140 based on our elevation and DA. And so I've done the ice tank, which should allow me to run cooler, which maybe will give me a mile an hour back. If not, what it'll do is at least make me consistent at the 139, 140, even when it's a little bit warmer out. So I logged the car, sent it to Tim, and he's like, dude, your fucking IATs are at 220 degrees. Now, for those of you that don't know, the car will cut timing, which essentially cuts power at 140, 145 degrees in these cars. So when your intake air temps hit 140, 145, you start losing power. Now think, I was at 220 intake air temps. So 220 degrees intake air temps, bad news. Something is not right. So I just, like I said, just hooked up the ice tank, so everything should be running cooler. So big problem. Tim said, what'd you do to the car different? I said, well, I put in the ice tank. He said, well, there's air in the system, obviously. So because of the system and draining it and filling it, you do get air pockets in the system. So my buddy Joseph had me drain the car out, fill it up, kind of drive it around, and then just keep topping off the reservoir, because the system's actually pretty decent at burping itself. You don't have to use one of the vacuum pressurized systems, although they are better and more accurate. The stock system's actually pretty decent at burping itself. So I did that yesterday before we went to the track. We got to the track, kind of did our normal go around. We drained the tank halfway, put ice in it, circulated it throughout the car, let some cooler water get up front, bring some more of the hot water to the back, and then drain whatever's left of the hot water and add some ice to it, and then get a run in. So the first run I had Joseph run with me, and he watched the IATs while I just focused on driving the car. And right after we did a burnout, the IATs jumped to 140, and we're like, okay, maybe because we're sitting here, we're doing a burnout, maybe that's why. And so after we do the burnout, launch the car, does a 157 60 foot, which is pretty good for my car. It could do better, but at our track and with the setup right now, that's actually a pretty good 60 foot. So cut a 157 60 foot, 8th mile was pretty decent, but we hit about right after the 8th mile, the IATs just spiked like crazy. I mean, they were at like 135, 140, and they just shot up to 200. And right as they start going for 200, I just shut off. I let off the car. I probably should have let off a little earlier. My car is on E85, so I think we're okay. I don't think we harmed anything in the engine, but it obviously, something was wrong with the car, and we had burped the system. So we went back to the drawing board. Joseph looked at the lines. We switched the lines up. So before, my ice tank was running directly to the supercharger, but we don't think when the car's launching and it's leaning back, we don't think that pump's strong enough to keep enough water coming forward while the car's kind of squatted in the back and going under full watt, wide open throttle, that the pump can keep up. So what we did was put that pump running to the stock pump, and then it would go to the tank. Because obviously the stock pump could keep up better because I've ran the car at better IATs without the ice tank. So we did that. Car did a little better, but we saw a top of 190, but we were able to stay in it and ran a 10.2 at 135, I believe, with a 153 60 foot. So I've cut a 153 before, so tied that as my second it's a tie for my best 60 foot. So that was pretty good. But still, 170 IATs, I'm still losing power at the back half of the track. So that's just not going to cut it. We're not going to get anywhere with that, and it's really bad for the car. So we knew something was wrong again. We did the same thing. We kind of tried to burp the system. But what we did this time is we overfilled everything. We overfilled the reservoir with water. We overfilled the tank with ice, trying to just cool it down as best as we could, get one more run out of it, get a little more data, because that's the biggest thing when you're going out, test and tune. What you're trying to do is just get data so you can get better each time. So went out one last time against Kevin and cut a 151 60 foot. So I'm almost at a 150, almost to the 1.4s, which is really exciting. So we're getting there, figuring out where to launch the car, what to have the tire pressure set at, because some people run higher PSI in these tires, but at our track, it's actually been proven now by my 60 foots to be better with a little bit lower tire pressure. Now I could switch tires, but I just got these ones, so I want to kind of run through them. So figured out the tire pressure for my car, what it likes, left at 1,000 RPMs and cut a 151 60 foot. Now I could probably leave a little bit higher, but that's what I wanted to test out, and it held it. So we could probably leave a little bit higher, but you can't leave too high because then you're just going to be back to spinning and get a worse 60 foot, which we don't want to backtrack. So got to the 8th mile about 650, I believe, 655, which is pretty good, 108 mile an hour. And once again, the back half of the 8th mile, Joseph didn't ride with me, but I did have the IATs pulled up, and I glanced over, and they were at 190 right at the top again. So I figured there's something still really wrong with the system. We still think we may need to reroute the lines again and maybe go directly to the heat exchanger, and then it'll run through the pump and then to the supercharger. So we're still trying to decide how we want to run the lines. But huge shout out to Eric from Team Hellcat, Extreme Muscle Performance. They're the ones that sell the ice tank kit. He called me from his cell phone. They're at HemiFest right now, which is the biggest Mopar Hemi race of the year. That's where a lot of records are broken. There's a lot. It's just one of the biggest ones. It's in Ohio. I'd really like to go to it sometime, but that's really far from me. So he called me off of his personal cell phone while he's out there trying to work on cars and get his cars situated, and asked me kind of what we have done, and he asked me if I knew about the bleeder valve on the supercharger. And so that's what we're doing right now, is we're trying to get the air actually out of the supercharger. So we've burped the whole system, but he thinks there's air pockets actually in the supercharger. And like I showed you before, there actually is a bleeder valve that comes right off the supercharger. So that's what I'm doing right now. So the car ran a best of 10.19 last night, 10.195, and my previous best was 10.199 with better IATs than last night. So I think the car, I don't know, it was still 62, 6,300 DA last night. It's still 79, 80 degrees. So I think the car definitely has a 9 in it at our elevation of 3,500 and how hot it's been here. I don't know if it's going to happen now, but I think it's definitely possible this year to do a 9 here. Now, I could go drive somewhere else. I could drive to Noble, which I've been before, but I could drive there and go run a 9, get my 9-second pass. But I think it's doable here with some tweaks. I haven't even put the Kirky seats in yet. This was still on full interior last night. So I still got the heavy-ass seats in there. Haven't done any weight reduction yet. So still got that part to do, which will, that'll cut some time off too. But I really need to get the IATs situated because that's where all my power is being lost right now, and we can't have that. So we're bleeding the supercharger right now. And yeah, so we're going to bleed the supercharger, take it out for some runs later tonight, try and get some wide open throttle pulls, and see what the IATs do. And I'll update you guys later this week. But I've got a busy week ahead of me. We have We Are Mopar coming up. So I've got to get this thing situated and then reroute the lines because they're all over the engine bay right now. And then I've got to get the seats pulled, the door panels pulled, put Rigo's door panels in my car, and then put the Kirkys in my car. Got to weld a couple nuts for the seatbelt fittings. So got a lot to do before We Are Mopar. It's going to be a crunch week, but I'm really excited for We Are Mopar. Can't wait to be out there and meet. Hopefully a lot of you guys that watch the channel will be out there, and if not, just look out for some footage that will be putting out from We Are Mopar. So just wanted to update you guys on the car. It still ran a personal best of 10.195 last night at 136 mile an hour with IATs of 190 degrees. So when we can get down to 100-degree IATs at the end of the track. It's going to be a totally different car, and can't wait to see where that takes us. Plus, we've still got some other stuff in the bag for the car. But this is kind of just part of racing, part of modifying your car, is trying to figure out the kinks and what works for your car, what doesn't work, and this is just part of it. So it does get frustrating sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's really fun, and I love going out there. Everyone was out there last night racing, and it was just a lot of fun. So that's pretty much it. Make sure you guys always comment, like, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Snapchat at VanV39, and we'll see you guys on the next one.